Hello, everybody. It is the same day. It's October 20th. My husband's out camping and I thought, I got the evening free. Why don't I kind of want to continue on with my thought process from the previous conversation, which, well, I'll air yesterday if you're watching this now. And I was thinking about when I mentioned to you about there was a couple of things. Like my first dental visit after I uh, remembered my parts. It was quite an experience. I remember getting in the car and starting to feel nervous and anxious. And I thought, well, to myself, well, okay, I know that there was a part uh, tortured at a dentist's office. What my surface memory of it was that um, I was a teenager and I had a tooth that grew behind the rest. I was always told that I had my dad's teeth and my mom's jaw. So too many teeth for a small jaw. And that's why the tooth got pushed back, whatever. And so my mom wanted to give me braces. And so that tooth had to be pulled. But to save money, this dentist said, well, let's just pull it without painkiller. And why my mom ever agreed to that, I don't know, but she did. And so, that part is freaked out about dentists. Now, up until um, gaining my memories back, I could go to the dentist and I'd be okay. I wouldn't be a nervous wreck or anything, but I I would hang on to the chairs and I'd cross my legs and I would be tense. And so this time driving to the dentist, and I want to interject here, don't put on the radio in your car. Because if I had put the radio on in my car and listened to music and bebopped around, I would have never had this conversation with my parts and I would have never gained more of their trust. So I get in the car and we're driving. And as we get closer and closer, it's about a 10-15 minute drive. I could feel my anxiety levels rise. Now, when I had amnesia, that never happened. But now that I don't have amnesia, or mostly don't have amnesia, the parts were getting nervous. And I was saying, okay, guys, I understand. You have all the reason in the world to be nervous and scared. That's where your torture took place and your pain and all that. I said, can you trust me? Because that's not going to happen this time. And they're like, well, okay, we'll see. We'll see when we get there. We'll see. So I drive up to the building and I get in there and this conversation took a lot longer than that while I'm driving. But I'm saying, well, let's just look around, look at the town, see where you are. We're not where you were before. We're not in Iowa where that happened, and we're not at this place where that happened to you, and et cetera, et cetera. And each different little part would pop its head up and have a concern. And I'd say, well, okay, look through my eyes, hear with my ears. We're driving. Wolf, help me out here because I'm preoccupied with the parts. I need you to drive. And Sarge, give her directions because we're preoccupied. And so the other parts that were not freaked out were able to get us there safely. And so we get to the building and I say, here's the building. Does it look the same as it did where you were before? Well, no. So, okay, so that's something that's different. Let's differentiate between your experience and what's happening right now. Let's differentiate. So, okay, so it's a different building. Let's go inside. Different office. Yes, so I go in and go on the little check-in sheet and wait for him to call my name and all that. And says we're sitting there. I noticed I was having heightened anxiety. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Who's talking? Who's popping up? And about 10 different parts that had MK Ultra programming were getting very nervous. And I said, okay, I understand it. You have every right to feel nervous and anxious, but let's differentiate. Is this the same office? No. Is this the same type of chair? No. This is the year 2024. We're in this particular city, and I listed it off to them. I said, we're going to be fine. We've been here before. We're just getting a teeth cleaning. Um, trust me. Can you trust me? Okay, okay. So, and you know how when you're in a waiting room, you always have to wait. Well, I had another part pop up, and that was the little part that used to lay in bed anxious at night, unable to go to sleep because that part knew Dad was going to come and wake us up and take us downstairs and abuse us. And he was going to do his MK Ultra stuff. That's what my dad did. Along with his sexual abuse, he did MK Ultra programming in our basement at night. He would knock my mom out. My mom's everybody in the world smoked back in the 70s. And so Dad got cigarettes laced with something, and Mom would have her evening cigarette, and she'd be knocked out like a light. And so me and my sisters would be in our room. We all shared a room, and we'd be laying there anxious. I would be, and I have a part that's called Booger. Because he would be anxious and he thought if he picked his nose and wiped it on the wall, or in another part that used to wet the bed until my mom divorced my dad when I was 11, that if we made our environment nasty, he wouldn't want me. He wouldn't want that. Well, that part was wrong. So as we're sitting in the waiting room, he was getting very anxious because, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Why is it taking so long? What's happening? Our appointment was at such and such time, and it's 10 minutes past that time. And what's going on? It's the clock, the clock. Why do we have to wait? Why can't they call us? All this is going on in my head. And I'm like, I understand. Just realize that's how this office works. I know we made an appointment. You're fine. Let's differentiate. Where are you? So each time a part popped up, I had to say, where are you? Is this the same place? No. Let's differentiate. Are we in our bedroom? No, we're not in our bedroom. Are we, is there a basement that we're going to be taken into? No, no. I said, well, why don't we, all of you parts that are nervous and anxious, let's call on our warrior guys and ask them if they can come and protect us. And so I called forth these little warriors. And I said, okay, guys, check the situation out. Let me know if there's any security threats, or if you can perceive anything that I'm not perceiving, because you have a more honed instinct than I do. Do you see anything? And so they started looking at all the entrances and exits and looking at the people and their body language, the other people waiting, and they're like, seems okay. Seems okay. I was like, okay, so my little anxious parts, does that make you feel better? Like, a little bit. I said, okay, let's just keep differentiating. All of a sudden, a woman walks in and she goes to the front desk and, signs in and all does her little thing. And believe it or not, she had on a long black dress with sleeves, went all the way to her feet. And I said, you have got to be kidding me. Here's this big woman in this huge black dress, which triggered everybody who's got issues with black robes. And so more parts were getting nervous. I said, okay, I understand. We don't know if she's a witch. We don't know what she is, but we got the security guards in place. If she pulls anything, if she comes near us, if she flips her hands around, does anything, we're going to recognize it and not respond. And that's okay. We can't control who comes in and out of this office, but we're on guard. No one's going to hurt you. I promise you. So I'm like, okay, so they're on it. So finally they call me in. And I didn't realize this teeth cleaning was going to be a little dental inspection. I switched offices a couple of years ago and they have a different procedure for things. So we at first they take you into the X-ray room, you get the stuff crap in your mouth and they're doing X-rays and all that. And so my little parts are getting, and they're putting stuff in her mouth. I said, I understand, but what is it that's being put in your mouth? Let's differentiate. Is it the same thing that was put in your mouth before? Well, no, it's not flesh, it's not blood, it's like a cardboard thing that's poking. I said, well, is that okay? I know it's uncomfortable, but it'll only last a moment and we'll do 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever, and it'll be done. Like, okay. And so, I'm feeling my hands, kind of grow. I said, do you know that you're not strapped down to this chair? And they're like, well, no. I said, well, take a look. Are you strapped down? Are you secured? And he went, no. I said, you think you could relax your hands? And they're like, I guess so. I said, you can raise your arms if you want. You can put them in your lap if you want. And they're like, really? I said, yeah, you can. And so they did. So that's the little X-ray room, and then they take you to the little room where the actual dentist, the doctor, inspects your mouth based on the X-rays. And so we're sitting in that room for about 10 minutes waiting for her. Same thing. So now it's a whole different room, but the chair is different and the equipment's different. And it's, you know, scientific equipment, and so they're still nervous. Different parts are popping up. MK Ultra parts. Oh my God, we're in a doctor's office with scientific equipment and sitting here waiting. And so they're again, gripping, not super bad, but they're gripping on the chair. And I said, it's okay, I understand. You have every reason to be nervous. I get it. I said, but let's differentiate again. Where are we? Look through my eyes. Is this the same place you were in before? No. I said, okay. I said, what year is it? Well, it's 2024. I said, well, what year were you harmed? And I said, is that the same? No. I said, I'm 58 years old. We are 58 years old. Are you not that little child anymore? And we've got the security parts keeping an eye out. You trust the security parts. They're like, yeah. I said, so you think you could relax a little? They're like, well, we'll try. And I said again, I said, let's look down at your arms. Are you strapped down? Are your ankles strapped down? Or your wrists? No. I said, check it out. We can lift our hands up. We can move around. We can get up, move. And I actually stood up and walked around the room a little bit. I said, let's look at the pictures on the wall. So you're allowed to inspect your space. So we did. They're like, oh, cool. All right. So, that we can walk out this door anytime we want, and no one's gonna care. I'll just call and make another appointment. We'll do it again. I'm like, oh, okay. So do you want to leave? And you're like, well, no, I guess we could see what happens. I said, okay, all they're gonna do is clean our teeth. So the dentist comes in and she inspects, and actually I prepped them. I said, the dentist is gonna come in and she's gonna put instruments in your mouth, and it's not going to hurt. You might feel a poke. And I did that. So you feel that? Yeah. I said, is that terrible? No. I said, so that's about as much pain as you're going to feel. You think you can make it through that? They're like, yeah, I think so. I said, so the doctor comes in and she's got a mask on, of course. And I explained to them quietly in my head, I said, the mask is just so that her spit doesn't come out on me. That's really all it's about. I said, she's not trying to hide her face. She's not trying to be, in disguise. It's just a protection. That's what we do in the year 2024. So the doctor did her inspection, and the parts kept lifting up their hands and putting it on their lap and moving their legs around, making sure they weren't strapped down, and they were okay. They're like, well, this isn't so bad. I said, exactly. And then the doctor said, well, you got a little infection here, a little infection there. And, so we recommend that we're going to put a little antibacterial in there. And I said, was it going to be a shot? no, it's just going to be this, like plunger thing, getting it deep in the gum line or whatever. Is there any pain involved? No. She's like, okay. I'm like, okay, I accept. I'll do that. And so then she left and they take us to the hygienist room. So a whole nother room and we're waiting in there again. And this time they weren't quite so nervous and quite, I said, let's keep differentiating. I said, we don't have to lay here. We can sit up while we wait. Okay, so we sat up and they had these three large windows with blinds. Well, and they had the blinds mostly closed. There's a little sunlight coming in. I said, why don't we open up one of these blinds so we can look out at this tree while we're waiting? It might be a little more pleasant. We're not block. We can do that. I said, I don't know if we can, but I'm gonna. I don't think anyone's gonna be mad at us. So I opened the blind, brought some sunlight in, and there's a tree, and we sat back down and yeah, this is good. We can look at the tree. It's pleasant. We're not in that environment that I was way back when, and this is very different. I was like, yes, it is. Let's just keep differentiating. So the hygienist comes in and I hope you don't mind, but I opened the blinds up. It just felt a little too closed. And she goes, oh no, I don't mind at all. Actually, let me open up the other two because I prefer it bright too. So the parts were like, yeah, we like her. We like her. So she opened up the blinds and we could see the whole tree instead of a section of the tree. And she went about and did her cleaning and this office doesn't have the polishers and the cleaners with all that noise. It's got like this newfangled technology where it does like water compression and it's very quick and very quiet. And the parts are like, when she got done, and the parts are going, yeah, okay, I have my mouth open, but I'm not in pain. I'm not hurt. We're here in this office. I said, just keep looking through my eyes and see where you are and when you are and it's different from where you were. Again, just constantly with each one that came up with an anxiety. And honestly, there was probably 15 or 20 parts that popped up through this whole experience. And I didn't know who it was or what name to sit there and say, okay, who is this? Is this Mary Jo? Is this Bobby? Is it? I was like, I didn't even go there. I just said, okay, you're talking to me. I hear you. Let me just talk to you. I don't need to know your name. Just let's talk. And so that's what I did. And so the hygienist gets done and she's like, okay, well, now we're going to put this antibiotic in. And they had a little anxiety came up again. And so I asked the dentist, I said, so there's no injection, right? No, no injection. I said, so how does this work? What does it work? What's it doing? Etc. And I said, so if we choose not to do this, then that could build into a cavity. She's like, yeah. I said, okay, well, let's go ahead and do it. And so it was just this, you could barely feel it. I was blown away because I'd never had one of those before. And the parts are like, wow, that was nothing. And I said, exactly. I mean, I didn't know either, but it was nothing. And we got done and the parts were like, yeah, are we done? Can we go? And I said, well, we're gonna stop and make an appointment for the next go around and whatever. And we'll have the security guys inside checking the exits and entrance, make sure there's no threats, no people that are flipping hand signs or any of that. And the lady with the big black dress is behaving herself, sitting quietly. Um, and we walked out, made the appointment. The security guys are looking around while we're making the appointment. I'm questioning the lady, no, I want morning and I want this date and okay, whatever. And we left and I got in the car and I said, so what do you guys think about a dental visit? Like that wasn't too bad at all. I said, so you think next time will probably be a little easier? They're like, yeah. Now I have to say, if I had been sitting there on my phone, screwing around with my phone or, social media, which I don't do, or had earphones in listening to music or whatever, that conversation never would have taken place. I would have not built trust with my parts. They would have not ever differentiated and came up to the present time with me and looked through my eyes and listened to me. And, I kept validating their experience and validating why they were anxious and validating why they wanted to run out the door. Shoot, excuse me. My little timer went off here. If I had not done that, my parts would have just gone through their anxiety, been uncomfortable, suppressed down because my conscious mind wasn't paying attention to them, and I would have lost that opportunity to gain their trust. So I can't stress that enough. Stop with the external noises and the external distractions. Just try to comfortably be in your own mind and listen to what's going on to your body, listen what's going on in your head, and address it with them. It's as though you're a school teacher and you're in front of them. And when they get nervous, they're going to pop up and fill the classroom. You got to deal with each one. And now here's a second experience. We have a Walmart, and I went shopping. And in this Walmart, they have Charlie's cheesesteak. And I love these sandwiches. They're the best sandwiches. And so what I'll do is when I get to the back of the store with my, groceries, I'll stop and take a moment and do a mobile order on my phone so that by the time I get up to the front and through the checkout lane, the sandwich is ready. I can pick it up and go and take it home and eat it. So before this, my parts and I had gone to a Walmart on one part of town and gotten a cheesesteak there, and everything was fine. But this time we were at a different location, a different Walmart. So as I placed the order, they chose the store that they knew from before. And this had never crossed my mind before. And so they ordered, when I got up to the Charlie's cheesesteak to pick it up, I realized, oh my goodness, I ordered it from this location, but I'm sitting in this location. It's all the way across town. And the first thing that happened in my head was, oh my God, how stupid. How could I make a mistake like that? And that's what I did. I went, oh my God, I hit myself, right? And I started to feel this anxiety, like, oh my God, how stupid could I be? And now I got to drive all the way across town. And so I'm feeling this anxiety, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, oh my goodness, these are parts popping up. And I thought, okay, it's all right. First thing I do is I went to the person there. There was no one else in line. They had just opened. And I said, oh my God, I just made this mistake. I ordered it from 10 West, and I tried to call the other store and tell them to cancel the order because I'm at the wrong location. And I'm telling the people behind this, so they're calling. And I went online and I chose the store that I ordered the sandwich from across town, picked that number to call them, but it wound up calling the location I was at. And I know that I selected the other location, so their computer was screwed up. And the girl's talking to me. She says, no, I'm watching you talk to me right here and now. And then we approached each other and I went, oh, geez, this is what I did. Can you call? So they try calling. And then the manager comes out, or assistant manager, whoever he was. So they're both on the phone trying to get him, and no one's picking up the phone over there. And so as they're doing that, I'm realizing, I said, the only other store I need to go to is Lowe's. And the store on the other side of town, the Walmart where the Charlie's cheesesteak is, where the sandwich is sitting there waiting, is right next to another Lowe's over there. So really, we can just drive across town, get the sandwich, go to Lowe's and come home, and we've accomplished our shopping. We got the sandwich. So I said, now granted, it'll be a little colder than we prefer, but we can stick it in the toaster oven, warm it up. It'll be just as good. And the parents are like, really? And I'm like, yeah. I said, do I want to drive across town? Do I want to lose 15 minutes of time? I said, not really. I said, but do I have it to spare? Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay. So I told the manager and the girl trying to call the other store. I said, you know what? It's okay. I'll just go over there. I need to go to Lowe's as well. They're right next door and it'll be fine. Oh, are you sure? I said, yeah, really, it's fine. Hang up the phone. They're not answering anyway. It's all good. I'll just go pick it up over there. So we get in the car, and again, I'm going to stress not turning the radio on, not getting on your phone, not calling somebody to chit chat. So as I'm driving across town, we get in the car, and I got these other parts going, well, how can we make such a stupid mistake? How? And I said, I know how you made the mistake because the last time we were at Walmart, we were at that location. And so I think that's where you thought you were. I said, so it's an honest mistake. And I said, honestly, the part that ordered the sandwich doesn't know the map of this city and doesn't know that there's three Walmarts, doesn't know that there's two Lowe's, and that there's the east side of town and the west side of town. I said, so it's an honest mistake. You didn't know how to use the iPhone. I said, there's adults right. I was talking to my counselor about this. He says, I don't even know how to use my iPhone half the time. So I'm telling you, I said, it's okay. I said, again, I said, all we're doing is losing 15 minutes of time, but it's okay. We've got that time. I said, and Sarge pipes up, well, it's not an efficient use of time. And we should, and that's why we organize our shopping this way. And I said, yeah, I know, Sarge. I know you've got a routine and you've got a way of doing things, but we made a mistake. And so the parts are like, you're really not mad? And this is as I'm driving. And I'm like, no, it's okay. We can still accomplish our goal. And 15 minutes isn't killing anybody. I said it'd be different if I was working or if we were under some sort of time pressure, but we're not, right? We're just going to go home. We're going to work on our journals and stuff. And so this is part of the process. You're here with me in the present time, which I'm thrilled about. You're co-conscious with me, which is fantastic. And you made a mistake. No one's in trouble. No one's going to get punished. We're just we're just going to go across town and drive. And so we're about halfway to the other store, and I realized that myself, the present time personality, I realized, oh, this is kind of a test. And I heard a little giggle in the back of my head. And I went, oh, so y'all wanted to see how I would react when you made a mistake. If I would get mad or upset or whack myself in the head and stress out like I initially did, which frankly was other parts reacting. But the prime person, me, the CEO of this group of us, of me, stepped in and said, well, wait a minute, it's okay. This is fixable. We'll lose 15 minutes of time, but the world's not going to end. And I'm going to teach you the difference between that location and this location. And I was showing them the different roads, east and west. Here's this road sign. It's a numerical and it goes from this location to this. So they got a store on this number street and a store on this number street. I said, I understand the mistake. It's not a big deal. And so now we're almost at the store and they're like, wow, you're really not mad. I'm like, no. So the only thing that changed, we lose a little time and the sandwich will be colder, but it's okay. We have a toaster oven and I'll teach y'all how to use it. They're like, cool, what's a toaster oven? I said, well, do you remember the easy bake ovens in the 70s, the one that mom got for you as a kid? Same thing, except it's real and it works. And they're like, no kidding. And I go, yeah, it's an easy bake oven. And they started giggling. So we go in, walk into Walmart, get the cheesesteak. It's, ready to go, maybe 30 seconds. I said, see, we don't even have to wait in line. It's ready. It's there. It gave us, when we walk out, because Lowe's and Walmart literally are right next to each other and I park in between them. So we went into Walmart, got the sandwich can, put the sandwich in the car, and went to Lowe's, got our 2 or 3 little things, came back, loaded the car up, and went back home. And I said, see, no big deal. I said it might have been different if there wasn't a Lowe's here and we needed to go to Lowe's, but it worked out. It was perfect. So I said, it's okay for you to make mistakes. I said, but now this is as I'm driving home. Again, no radio, no phone, no distraction, just conversation in your head. I said, so as we drove there, you saw the street signs. I said, now we're going to go back home and watch the numbers of the street signs, learn the map of the city. I said, access the parts who have looked at the actual map of the city and see how, the number streets go north and south, the letter streets go north or east and west. And so when you see it say, 20J20, you know where it is on the map. And they're like, okay, so we need to learn the map. I said, yeah, we've got parts in there that know the map of the city. Sarge knows them really well. Sarge, can you give them a little tutoring lessons? She's like, sure. She said, next time we're not going to make that mistake. And I said, okay. And I also said, this is as we're driving home, I said, so the next time we go to Walmart, either Walmart, and we want to get a sandwich, bring it home for lunch, I said, we're going to triple check before we hit the button that says order, right? We're not just going to throw it in there and assume it's right. We're going to double check it and triple check it and then hit the order button. Yeah, we agree. We can do that. We have no problem with that. I said, great. That's how you learn. We just check. I said, so you needed to learn the map. You needed to learn that you're not going to get in trouble if you make a mistake. Um, you learned that there's 2 different Walmarts that we frequent. Granted, there's a third one. I generally don't go there, but if we happen to be in that part of town, we might go there. So let's pay attention to the street signs while we're driving, because I have a couple parts that like to drive. And I said, so drivers, as you're driving, I want you to start looking at street signs again and, landmarks, and let the parts that don't know the layout of the town understand the layout of the town. Let's start tutoring them. And they're like, okay, we can do that. And so we get home, I unload the groceries, the sandwich is sitting there, unload the groceries and the stuff. Took about 5 or 10 minutes, and then I sat down. I said, okay, here's the toaster oven. So we're going to take the sandwich out, put it on this thing, and you got different functions, you got different temperatures, you got different times. I said, let's access the cook part that knows how to operate this and cook. Her name is Faith. I said, can you start teaching these other parts how to use the Easy Bake Oven, which is now called a toaster oven? And she's like, sure, yeah, no problem. And so, popped it in there, warmed it up, pulled it out, put it on the plate, and sat down to eat it, and it was great. I said, the only difference is the bread is more toasty than, just the raw piece of bread. I said, but either way, it's enjoyable, right? They're like, yeah, this is great. We love it. So they were testing me. I don't know if that part that made the mistake did it on purpose or not, but somewhere along the line, I got the impression shot through my head at least 3 or 4 times. I'm being tested. How am I going to react? Am I going to be stressed out and, punish myself? Or am I just going to be kind and understanding and teach them? And so that's what I did. Same thing with the dentist office. You have to listen to what's going on with your body. When you have anxiety, something's going on. Oh, and here was another experience at Walmart again, waiting for my sandwich. It happened to be around 1 o'clock, so I was having a late lunch. And so I'm standing there. I had forgotten to order in the back of the store. And so once I was leaving, I went, oh, darn it, I forgot to order. Okay, well, we'll just do it right here and I'll sit and wait. As I was sitting there waiting, I was getting anxiety, the waiting, the part that doesn't like to wait. And I said, it's okay. We got all our groceries here in the bag. I happen to have a bag of chips. So I said, we've paid for it. We're here. Let's just open it up. We'll have 4 or 5 chips. We'll subside your hunger while we're waiting for the sandwich because we're not going to eat it till we get home anyway. And I said, so what's going on here? What part is this? And it was Wolf. Wolf was the part who was stuck in a cage, being trained to be a dog, starved to death, whatever. And so she gets very anxious when she gets overly hungry. She's all right when she's a little bit hungry, but when it gets to that hangry part, I thought, well, we can ease that. Let's just have a little snack while we wait. No one's going to get upset. We're not stealing. We've paid for it. Opened the bag of chips, had 4 or 5 chips while standing there waiting. And they're like, oh, well, that's just so much better. Thank you. And I was like, great, no problem. The sandwich came, we drove home and, you know, ate it. And it was great. And so it's little things like that they want to know you're listening. They want to know that you care. And again, with Wolf, I said, well, let's differentiate. Are you in your cage? No. Do you have access to food? Yes. In her situation, there were little rats and mice that ran around. And if they were desperate, if they could catch them through the cage and kill it and had the nerve to eat it, they did. But I said, are you in that situation right now? And she's like, no. I said, look at this. We got a whole basket full of groceries. We can have a snack. We don't have to sit here and suffer. And so she was just thrilled and overjoyed. So I just wanted to share that experience with y'all and also about Headspace. And I did a video on this. Oh darn, I put it on. It was number 12. Let me look in my files real quick, the date of it. It was published. Oh shoot. It's number 12. Sorry. I gotta look on my handwritten paper because I don't put the date that it's number 12. Okay. And I didn't start, I need to number them. Number 12, number 12, 12, 12. It was published July 29th. So that'll help you find it. And it's called Headspace. And it will explain to you the importance of not filling your head with nonsense. Turn the TV off. If you're watching 5 or 10 different series through the week, cut it down to 1 or 2. And if you can, eliminate them all. Watch interviews of SRA survivors or watch things that are going to educate you. Like I have wanted to learn how to organically garden and grow my own vegetables because you know what we get in the store. Yeah, you can buy organic vegetables, but I wanted to start to be a little more self-sufficient. And so I learned how to organically garden. So that's one of the channels I watch on YouTube. Or I watch a couple of homesteaders and one of them is a family with 6 children. It was 5 children at the time. They just had a baby, but they have a 3-year-old little girl, and now she's about to be 4. And I love to watch her grow up and say to myself, that's what a healthy 3 and 4-year-old child should look like and move like and behave like and talk like, because we don't know what that is. I don't have children. And I mean, I know my niece and nephew, but that's what a child looks like that's not being abused. So find shows that are going to educate you rather than entertain and distract you. And it's not just about entertainment and distraction, it's about programming, which I'm sure all of you are aware with any show that you watch now. There's something politically correct in there. You get the LGBTQ agenda in there. There's always a gay character in there. And in your whole world, I mean, in my world, I had a gay roommate in Dallas. We lived together for 3 years, so I didn't have an issue with gay people. But the thing is, I don't want it shoved down my throat, and I don't want to be told that I have to accept this. And I've since learned in the Bible that that's considered an abomination. And I've also read a book called Hostage to the Devil. It's 5 different stories about exorcisms. And in one of the stories, it's about a person who was very subtly misled by demons and became gay. And I am now of the opinion that is an unhealthy influence in a person's life that sways them that way, or someone who is embracing basically Satanism, because that's what Satanism is all about in the Baphomet. The Baphomet is a creature that's androgynous. Anyway, I'm going off into the weeds here. The point is, whatever you watch on TV, your television program, why do you think they call it a program? Because it's programming the entire public at once. Whatever's politically correct at the time, is going to be put in the shows because Hollywood works with the government, and the government works with the world leaders who practice Satanism. So television is programming you very subtly, sometimes not so subtly. Commercials are programming you. And music is programming you. Listen, whatever your favorite songs are, take a minute, pull up the lyrics and read them. And read them from the point of view. If I were a Satanist and I'm writing this, what is the message I'm sending? Because that's what they do. And I've also learned from an ex-Satanist who was in the music industry that for every song and album that is cut, they take it to the top floor. They have 13 witches say prayers and spells over that thing as it's being pressed into its CD or digital format or whatever it is. They say curses and prayers over it so that as you hear it and as you buy it and bring it home as a CD or listen to it on your iTunes or however you listen to your music, there's a demon that comes through it to you. And I know people aren't going to want to hear that, but it's the truth. Look up a man named Jon Todd. I think it's JONTODD. And he'll explain the music to you. And if you type it into YouTube, even Satanism and music or witchcraft and music, you will come up with testimony after testimony after testimony of people in the music industry explaining this. These songs are not written by the artist. They're not. And if they are, it's because that artist is steeped and at a very high level of what they might call the Illuminati or witchcraft or whatever. It's all the same thing. It's coming from Satan. It's his way of programming us through the mass media to sway our opinions over time, over generations, over the years from, think about the music of when you were, most of us, I don't know, think about the music when you were 5 compared to the music when you were 50, or the music when you were 20 to the music when you're 50. And if you're only 30 years old, you're not going to see the gap. But the older you get, you're going to see how music and television and movies all over time degrade and degrade and degrade and lead you more and more and more into a twisted way of thinking. And that's how Satan gets you. That's why 99% of the population is absorbed and wrapped up in sports and music and movies and this and that. Watch my signs and symbols videos, and you'll see how many references there are to actors, actresses, musicians, athletes, politicians, professional people, flipping satanic signs. This is 666. So if you see somebody say, oh, well, it's the okay sign. No, it's their way of saying 666. This is the devil horns. This is the number 5 of V, the Roman numeral 5, which indicates a 5-pointed star, which is, guess what? A pentagram. People say, no, it's the peace sign. No, it's a Satan worship. Now, most people will flip these things up. They go, oh, it's cool. My husband thinks that this is the surfer bad dude thing. And I'm like, no, that's for the people that don't know. But the people in the know put this out there for you to copy and mimic and spread the word, spread Satanism. So, and again, I'm going to go back to, we are recovering from satanic ritual abuse. Satan is anti-Christ, anti-Christian. He's not anti-Buddha. He's not anti-Taoism. He's not anti-Muslim. He's not anti-Jew. Satan is only anti-Christ. That's the only thing he wants to squash is Christ and Christianity, the Church of Christ. The churches themselves, we all know, are tainted with Satanists all over the place, pedophiles all over the place, abusers all over the place. And the church itself, it doesn't tackle the difficult problems. The church itself doesn't even talk about the supernatural nature of this world. They don't touch it because they've been so infiltrated over generations, over decades, over centuries, since Christianity was formed 2,024 years ago. That's how Satan works. The song, I think it's by, was it the Rolling Stones? Time is on my side. Yes, it is. Time is on my side. That's Satan's song because he does it slowly and incrementally. But we're getting to the point where things are speeding up and shifting and moving. And we got to heal as quickly as possible. We need to reclaim our parts. We need to have our instincts honed. We need those parts that know what a demon or Satan looks like, smells like, feels like, whatever, so that we can protect ourselves and our family and our friends. And they might think we're crazy, but when we save their lives, they're not going to think we're crazy. Okay? We know the supernatural world. We know it. We lived it. We walked through the shadow of death. And God was with us. And he's with us now. So turn off the TV, turn off the radio, and start talking to yourself. Those conversations you have in your head. Like I said, when you do start to turn it off, it'll probably take a couple weeks to get the jingles and the commercials and the, oh my God, I'm wondering what's happening on General Hospital, and I wonder what's happening on House of Dragons or whatever show you watch. It doesn't matter what's happening on there. It's fiction. And fiction is the best vehicle to insert messages into. That's how it works. It's like rat poison. Rat poison is 95% corn or wheat or whatever that thing, whatever it is, it's that 5% of poison that'll get you. And you need to learn how to discern and separate it out. And I say just eliminate it altogether. And if you do have to watch something, like my husband will want me to come in there, I study it. And I say, okay, so what's missing here? What are they not saying? You know, If you're watching it, study it. Be consciously aware and study it and ask your parts to watch with you and say, okay, prepare yourselves because you're going to get triggered. But ask yourself in the whole, what's going on here? Why do they want you triggered? Why do they want you emotional? Why do they want you sobbing from a sad movie? Why do they want you angry or whipped up about the election? It's all orchestrated. It's all programming. And if you think that there's competition between networks and corporations, no. At the very, very, very top, they are all part of the same clubs, same organizations with the same goal, world control. And part of that is to have a one world religion. Well, no, the only religion that Satan is afraid of is Christianity. You ever notice that? Christianity gets squashed and all the others get raised up and they want to mix them together. That's a trick of Satan. So turn off the external noise so that you can listen to your parts, so that your parts begin to trust you. The more they trust you, the more they'll show you. The more those parts show you and feel safe, and you work on TED and you release your rage, then more parts will come up. And you're going to fill out your life story. And you're not going to get 5% of a story. The more they trust you, they'll say, well, look, I'll give you 30 more percent of that. And then they'll trust you even more because you went to the dentist and you showed them. They go, well, heck, we're here and now, and this isn't going to happen. I'm going to show you the rest of the story. And now I got 90% of this part's story and 80% of that, rather than just this little snippet of an image that causes anxiety. Listen to the chatter in your head and not the external chatter. Like I said, it'll take a couple weeks for the jingles and the desire. You're going to be detoxing from entertainment. But once you detox and you find something else to do and you spend, instead of spending 3 hours a night watching TV or 2 hours a night, sit your butt down in front of your computer and make a parts map. Collect up images off Google or do sketches. Work on your mental health. Build yourself up because God had us survive for a reason. He wants us to be his warriors because the people out in the public on the street that didn't have SRA and didn't have abuses, they're gone. They're lost in the mass media. And if God wants to give them an experience and save them and shift them around, great. But they don't know what a demon looks like, smells like, tastes like, the shift in air pressure, all of it. They don't know that, but we do. And God needs us on our toes. So anyway, I'll get off that rant and I'll close off for the night. I just want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for coming along on my journey. If you want to contact me, my email is warlyndi@yahoo.com. That's warlyndi@yahoo.com. I will send you blank forms, blank charts. You can ask me whatever questions you want. I'm more than happy to help. Free. Okay. So, I for some reason, God led me to Jon Uhler. Jon Uhler's charts were a starting point. I took his charts and graphs and drilled down on them because it's in my head. And I was able to separate out and break things apart. And I think that'll be my next video where I show you, like the last video I talked about giving the parts existence. That's a picture, a new name, the old picture, the old name, then a new picture and a new name, change their clothes. Let's put them on the timeline from birth to now, what was your emotional impact? Was it a one? You got a new dog? Was it an eight? Because that was great. Or were you being tortured in MK Ultra and it was -8, -9, -10, fighting for your life? You know, you chart and you graph that. And then the next thing I do after that is I give them new life. So that's the new name, the new picture. We change their clothes. I show them Lake City, say, pick out any room you want. Here's parts that will help you. They'll orient you. Let's walk around Lake City. I show them the PowerPoint and I say, you can change your clothes. You've got, all the things that I've shown you on the PowerPoint. And say, but you're going to go to school and you're going to go to arts and crafts and you're going to, do all sorts of fun stuff and you can swim and have ice cream and pizza and enjoy each other. And it's at some point you'll pick a new purpose. I have about 10%, maybe 20% of my parts that have picked new purposes. And one part, her only purpose she wants to do, she wants to be the one that feeds the birds. So every morning she gets my butt out there and I feed the birds. And of course, the moneymaker part of me is saying, we're using that up too fast and we have to keep buying more. We don't know. And I say, you know what, moneymaker, it's okay for now. Until Caroline decides she wants to do something different, we're going to buy extra bird feed and feed the birds. So she feels successful in her purpose. And the last thing I have found, I don't know if it's the last thing, I'm not remembering all of it. I have a little checklist, is are you baptized or not? So every night as I go to bed, I say my prayers and then I sit there and I guess you could call it's not really meditation, but I'll just sit quietly and I'll say, okay, let's have a parts puddle. Everybody come together. Does anybody need or want to do something? Because they know the checklist. They've seen me fill it out for them individually. And last night, or no, it was the night before last, I had one part pop his head up, Corky, the one who was taught the Bible incorrectly. He said, because I've had, like I said, maybe 10% of my parts have been baptized. And Jesus hangs out in Lake City with us. He comes in an instant when we want him. And sometimes he just hangs out there walking around talking to everybody. Corky said, I'd like to be baptized. And I went, oh, okay. Awesome, Corky. So we baptized him. And so in my mind, I'll, close my eyes and we will visualize the baptism. And Jesus does the baptism and he baptizes in the lake. And, I've let everybody know as you drink the water in Lake City, it comes from that lake and that's baptismal water. So as you're drinking it, you're taking in holy water. And so they all know that and they're okay with it. And when they're ready, Corky is, what is it? It's probably 9 months after he popped his head up. He wants to be baptized. He's been reading the Bible. We're just about to start the book of Lot. I think we just finished Nehemiah. Is that the name? Sorry, memory's not too great with that. But he's enjoying it. And the questions he has, we talk to Jon about it and clears it up. He's like, oh, okay, I'll keep going then. So, and when Corky got done, then my other cult loyal parts popped in. And I'll give you their old names because it was the one that was my grandma, my grandpa, my dad part, Wizzy, who did the witchcraft. And then as I got into the new age, Krista, who was into crystals. And then Reiki, the girl who practiced Reiki, hands-on healing art. And then the girl who did the chanting. And the girl who did the Buddhist meditation and wound up calling a demon to her. I had almost all, and BB, the part that was the part that used to be called Black Brother, he's now called BB. He was the one that practiced witchcraft with that creepy guy in the Masonic Lodge where they were throwing energy around. All of them got baptized in one night. And I didn't know it. It was just Corky said, I want to be baptized. And after he was done, I said, okay, I thought that would be it for the night. And then Greta's like, no, that my grandma part. No, I want to. So we did her. And then my grandpa part popped up. And then each one. And I didn't know there was a lineup. I don't even think they knew it, but I think as each part got baptized, it freed something up in my headspace where the other ones were like, well, I want to too. I want to do that too. And so I think it took about a half hour, we did 10 parts. I think it was actually 11. And I jotted down on a little piece of paper, so and so got baptized. And they like seeing it written down because it's recorded. And I tell my counselor. And that's what we do. I have parts puddle and whatever they need or want, I take care of for them. And I just close my eyes and I visualize it. Oh, and here's a part of their new life. I forgot. This is probably the most important part. We destroy their prisons. So they get the new name, new picture, new clothes, new place to live, new purpose. And it's like, hey, who wants to destroy their prisons? And people will pop their head up. And I'll say, okay, well, what do you want to do to it? What location? And they'll, if they were just one location, it'll be just that location. Or if it was many locations, to say, okay, X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, whatever. And so we visualize them all. We line them up on, like on the earth and on my mind. And I say, what weapon do you want to use? And some of them use uh, claymore mines, grenades, flamethrowers, quicksand, lava, directed energy weapons, jets from airplanes, and lately they've been wanting to use atom bombs. And so we'll stand up next to God up in heaven. I'll say, okay, let's look down on those locations. All right. Or if it's a grenade or a flamethrower, I'll say, okay, here's the weapon. Let's get it ready. Let's turn it on. Say, okay, go. And that's how it started. But that has evolved now into I say, okay, who wants to destroy their prisons? And they're like, oh, me, I want to, but can I kill my perp first? And I'm like, well, certainly, I'd never thought of that. And so the ones that did it first just destroyed their prisons, but now my parts have a need to kill their perp first. This is so graphic. Some of them would jam ice picks in their eyes. Some of them chop their tongues off, chop their, the pretty girls, the pretty witches who are all about their beauty and their body and all that. We cut their noses and their ears off. So they're ugly. And then we kill them with whatever weapon. So they kill their perps first. And the little ones, there was this one little one. She said, well, can I just take God's foot and squish him? Just walk on him. And I said, certainly. And God did it. He just took a big foot and squished the perp. And we visualize it. Their blood squirting all out, And then we destroy the prison. I'll visualize the bomb or the weapon, whatever it is. So there it is. Let's burn it down. And it will always create some sort of scar on the earth, like a burn scar, or if it's a bomb, it's a crater or whatever. And I say, okay, it's destroyed. Now God's going to heal the land. And so that hole will all of a sudden start closing up, and God will heal the land, and he'll say, what would you like to be on there? And sometimes they pick a forest or a flower garden or wildflowers, and one part picks, so can it be just a massive field of wheat with buffaloes roaming on it? And I said, certainly, you can have whatever you want. And once the land is healed, they generally go play on it. So that's really cool. Destroy their environment, baptize them. And the thing that was cool with the baptisms, as Jesus is laying them on, they'll always say their declaration first and what they repent for and all that. Each one's very different. And then Jesus will say, are you ready? Sometimes they'll say, well, I got more to say. So they'll say it. And they'll say, okay, are you ready? And they'll go, yeah. And so Jesus will lay them down in the water, and they'll go under the water. And sometimes I'll feel shudders go through my body, or sometimes I'll feel myself exhale like I did when I was baptized. It was water, bubbled water came out of my mouth that wasn't conscious. But each one's very different and unique, and I do not record those because they're personal and they're between that part and me and God. So those are not recorded, but each one's very different and individual and unique and special and private. But destroying the prisons, we darn sure record that, put it on there, handwrite it, and then the next day I'll go into my Excel document and fill it out. So that's fun. And they love it. And they don't, and they know that they're never gonna have to go back to their prison ever, ever, ever again, because it's gone. It's just gone. And they live in Lake City. And what I realized the other day was that Lake City, I'm not 100% conscious of it all the time because obviously I have to live in the present time. But what happens is they live, instead of being in the wounded child level or the repressed level of the consciousness, they're now hanging out in the subconscious part of the mind, which is just below consciousness. So when they're upset or anxious, they can pop their head up real easy, and I talk to them, and then they go back into Lake City. So that's what Lake City is. It can be conscious when I think about it and bring it up in my head, or if that's a form of meditation, I guess. Or they can be with me here in the present time. So it's a lot. It really is. But when I think about it, it's the time I would have spent years ago watching TV. I've never really been a big music person because I was abused with different music and songs. And I didn't know why I didn't care for a whole lot of music, but now I do. But TV was my thing. And when I slowly started cutting that off years ago, it made a difference. You can hear your own thoughts. So I'll say it again. Turn off the TV, turn off the radio. Spend time in your mind. Okay. I'll end off here. I'm going to wish you, God bless you. God give you strength and courage and insight and discernment. And that may he buffer your recall so that you can remember the incident without totally breaking down. And if you do totally break down, that's okay. Let yourself cry it out for an hour if you need to, or 2 hours. Just make yourself get up the next day or even the same day and go out and beat on Ted or beat on your bed and start getting the rage out. Because underneath the sadness is rage. And as long as you hold it in, that part can't release more. As it releases its rage, it frees up space for them to give you more of their memory, which might involve more crying and more rage under that. But the more rage that goes, the calmer, happier, and more peaceful they are, the more conscious they become, and you can interact with them at any time you want. Excuse me. So anyway, I pray that for you. I ask God to watch over and bless you, keep you in a safe environment, to bind any demons from entering your property or your dreams, and bind any human or spirit from astral projection, any of that from, and read that prayer by Mary Lou Lake. Read it every single day. I do, every morning and every night, and I read it out loud. It was awkward at first, but now it's natural. I hit my 40th day and 40th night on October 4th, so I'm like a day 55 or something now. And I thought, my husband said, you really only need to do that once, but I got this whisper in my ear from God that said, no, 40 days and 40 nights. Well, when that was up, I thought, well, I like saying this. I like doing this, so I'm just going to keep doing it. And I thought to myself, I should do it each day for every part that I have, which will be hundreds. So I'll probably be saying it for a couple of years. Anyway, I love you all. Take care. God bless you on your journey. And again, contact me if you want to. Okay. Love you all. Take care. See you next time.